Hello, I'm BMillzebub, and welcome to my channel. Today, I have my friend Laura Lulu coming back to my channel, and we are going to talk about a little bit of sex ed because the American education system sends people into the world woefully unprepared for pretty much anything in that realm. So, Laura, why don't you introduce yourself and why we should take you seriously?
Well, don't take me too seriously. I am a nurse, but I am an ortho-surgical nurse. I'm not a gynae nurse. We do have gynae patients sometimes, but I'm not an OB-GYN, I'm not a doctor, and I'm not a sex ed teacher. I do know enough about biology and reproduction that I can answer most questions with some relative accuracy, but don't rely on me. Talk to a doctor if you have concerns.
So basically, this is just going to be for education and entertainment purposes only. All right, so let's get into the questions. First up, we have a question from An Atheistic Snail's Journey. Please mention asexuals exist. Lots of confusion about that.
Yes, there are ace people. It is not super common. It's probably about as common as gay people, people who are like strictly gay. But it's a legitimate sexuality, and the generally accepted definition of ace people or asexual people is that they don't experience sexual attraction to varying degrees based on the person. Some people don't experience any sexual attraction at all. For some people, it's very particular, like some people are demisexual but consider themselves ace, where they only experience sexual attraction when they have an emotional bond. You can be asexual but not aromantic. Some aromantic people are also asexual, but not, they don't always go hand in hand. Often, but not always, do they go hand in hand. A lot of asexual people still have relationships. Some of them even still have sexual relationships. It's just not quite the same experience as your average sexual being.
Right on.
That's it.
I was actually going to mention um, aromantics as well, but you beat me to the punch. So awesome.
I'm not ace, so I don't know as much about it as an ace person. I know that an atheistic snail, she is ace. So if anyone has questions, she's pretty cool.
Yeah, atheistic snail would be the person to go to. So let's move on to the next question. Not really getting any questions so far, more statements, but still. Cypher Knight says that pulling out is not a better alternative to condoms, and also says, and where to find the clitoris, and that just because the most sensitive part of the female body doesn't mean you need to rub the hell out of it. So let's start with, how pulling out is not better than using condoms.
Actually, it is a little bit better than a little bit better. It's not something you should rely on. Pulling out doesn't work at all for prevention of disease because there's still enough body fluid exchange going on that if somebody's got something, you're gonna get it. But depending on the time of this woman's cycle or the strength of the man's emissions, and I'm using woman and man basic, traditional definitions of those. Um, Pulling out actually is better than not pulling out if you're just trying not to get pregnant. It is not as good as condoms. It is not as good as hormonal birth control, but it is a little bit better. Does that make sense? It's not perfect, but it will be safer than not pulling out.
Well, yeah, I would imagine that not pulling out and, you know, coming to completion is not going to at all be good prevention for pregnancy.
No. Some people use that as their birth control, and it works pretty good for a long period of time. That's anecdotal, but it is better, not much better. Don't rely on it.
All right, so let's move on to the next thing Cypher had to say. and where to find the clitoris, and that just because it is the most sensitive part of the female body doesn't mean you need to rub the hell out of it.
Okay, clitoris, men. I hope most of you have figured this out by now. Men and people who want to have sex with women or with people who have vaginas. There are the outer labia. Then there's the inner labia. At the top of the inner labia, under a little hood, is the clitoris. It's just a tiny little nub, basically, and it's very helpful for women with achieving arousal and orgasm. You do not poke it to death. You be gentle, work up to it, have a conversation, and communicate with your partner about what they like, what directions, what amount of pressure. As with anything in sex, please communicate with your partner and have a good open communication about that.
Agreed. Yeah. And when a woman actually tells you something, like how she likes to, have the clitoris massaged, actually listen to her, because
Yes.
you're just being a selfish son of a bitch if you're not paying attention. I'm just gonna
Well,
throw
if you
that out
don't,
there.
yeah. And if you don't pay attention and you don't try, they're not going to have a good experience. So if you don't care if they have a good experience, A, you suck, and B, don't have sex with people if you don't care about their experience. That's creepy. Don't do that.
All right, and moving on to what we have next is Doommaster 10913. Why my PP stand?
There is erectile tissue in the PP that is basically blood goes in and fills chambers and makes it stand based on visual or physical stimuli. There you go.
I love how that comment was obviously trolling, and yet we answered it anyway. Because not everyone knows that. I mean, like I said, America doesn't have the greatest sex ed in the world, so
Yeah.
plenty of people, I'm sure, have no clue. So
There's erectile tissue in the clitoris too. It's not the same, but it's still the same, type of tissue.
there we go. All right, so moving on to hopefully not trolling. Alucard says, follow-up question, why my PP no stand when his stand? You actually responded to this, and I'm going to let you respond like this
I
time.
did. I think what I said to him was me. I think what he was trying to say was that he, like, an erectile dysfunction joke, but what I made it was, well, if yours doesn't stand when his is standing, then you must not be attracted to it, so you probably aren't gay. Sorry.
Yeah, that's a more wordy version of the way you put it. But yeah, if his PP standing and yours isn't, well, you're probably not into that sort of thing. So you're probably just gonna have to move on, Alucard. That's kind of how this one goes. So yeah, let's move on to what we've got next. Full of Joy 365 says, I think it's important to discuss myths about sex. Here's a few to start. 1, foods make you horny. And actually, let's just knock these out one at a time. So, myth number 1 about sex, foods make you horny. True or false?
That is actually more complicated than true or false. Some people do like to incorporate food into their sex life. That's fine. Not everybody does. That's also fine. I don't know that there's a actual evidence-based food that causes arousal in people. There are drugs that do it, but I don't know that there's a food that does it. I would have to look that up more. I don't think so. But if you're the type of person who likes to incorporate food into your sex life, it could be an aphrodisiac.
Yeah, I mean, like, aphrodisiacs as far as, like, are actually causing arousal in people through biological mechanics, I guess would be a way to put it. Yeah, I'm pretty certain that isn't real, but I mean, there's people that like to cover their fun bits with like whipped cream or something like that. So, as
Yes.
far as and I'm just gonna preface this: be safe if you're gonna put
Yeah.
yeah, if you're
I'd
gonna
like
put food on yourself.
I'd like to interject. Please do not put food items into yourself. Food
Uh,
items go into your mouth. Food items do not go anywhere else. Please don't put them up your butt. Please don't put them in your vagina. Just no, don't do that. Infections, no, please.
yeah, you don't want that. I like this is kind of taking it on a slight tangent, but I did manage to get an infection down there once, and
Oh,
oh no, it was so terribly unpleasant.
I'm so
um,
sorry.
just like it. Okay, so people that don't have testicles are not likely going to be able to relate, but it felt like I was getting kicked in the testicles. So yeah, don't. That wasn't from food. That was something else. I'm not about to,
Safety is key.
yeah, just it was. I don't even remember what the hell it was from. I was working at a water park at the time, so
Oh,
possibly the chemicals in the water. I don't even remember.
goodness. Ow.
Yeah, felt like I was getting kicked in the nuts. So definitely take Laura's word. Don't stick food up yourself. Just keep food to the mouth. That's just be smart, guys. All right, so moving on to myth number 2, size matters.
That's really subjective. Um, for the most part, it really doesn't. And I'm assuming they're talking about men penis size. Um,
Probably.
yeah, probably. Men think it matters a lot more than women do. I don't know if this is true because I'm not a gay dude, but I've heard that gay dudes like really place a lot of importance on it, depending on whether they're tops or bottoms or into that. But for the most part, women or NB people who have sex with men or people who have penises don't really care how big it is. There's obviously extremes that can be uncomfortable. Like if you're extremely small, it can be difficult for both partners to have a successful experience. And if you're extremely large, it can be painful for one or both parties. Most men are like erect, like 5 to 6 inches. That's like average. That's fine. That's totally fine. Anywhere even near that is totally fine. Women's vaginas, on average, are actually not as deep as the average men's penis length. So we don't need you to, punch us in the uterus. You're fine just the way you are.
Yeah, I'd heard that the vaginal canal isn't terribly deep, so yeah, being punched in the uterus is probably a pretty good analogy.
hmm Obviously, vaginas are flexible and they can cope, but yeah, seriously, you don't need to be 13 inches and really girthy. Nobody wants that. Okay, I shouldn't say nobody wants that. Some people might really like that. That's fine. That's why it's subjective. Some people are really into a particular type of thing, and that's totally fine. I'm just saying you're fine just the way you are. You'll find someone. Don't worry.
All right, let's move on to myth number 3. Men think about I can read. Men think about sex every minute of the day.
I'm not going to pretend that in general, men and testosterone driven people are not more, um, have maybe a higher sex drive than women or estrogen driven people. That's certainly true. It's a generalization, obviously. Not everybody falls into that. But every minute of every day, I don't know, maybe when you're 12 to 14, but after that, usually men kind of figure it out. I mean, you're a dude. How often do you think about sex?
Well, I mean, it kind of depends on, what age range we're talking about me being. Like when I was a
Exactly.
teenager, yeah, probably about once a minute, honestly,
Hmm.
especially if I was in class and there was a teacher I liked. So that would, definitely be like a high traffic time of my life when I was thinking about it. Then I get into my late teens and I'm still thinking about it pretty frequently, but not as much. In it diminished a bit, through my 20s. Now I'm 32. Yeah, I still think about sex, like when I'm watching a TV show and, a really attractive character comes on, I'm like, damn,
Yeah. Well, I
you
do that
know.
too.
I think everyone kind of does that, but it just depends on the man. I'm sure there are people out there. I know the term nymphomania is sex addiction in women. I want to say, and I'm going off of the Big Lebowski here, psoriasis in men is what sex addiction
I'm
is
not
called.
sure.
I'm not
I'm not
sure
sure.
either. That'll be something to look up, and I'll, after I do the research, I'll, put it at the end of the video. Hi, everybody. It's BMillzebub a few hours after all of that was shot. I just wanted to confirm really quickly that, yes, psoriasis is more or less sex addiction in men. Back to the video. So let's move on to the next myth, shall we? Women can only orgasm vaginally.
There are some schools of thought that posit that women have two different types of orgasms, vaginal and clitoral, or some combination thereof. It's actually not super well researched. Some people consider them to be the same thing, just a different sensation. I mean, men can have different sensations with their orgasms depending on the manner in which they achieve it. So it's just, yeah, it's just different.
Should probably put a little more study into that.
Yeah.
All right, so next myth. Only gay men like anal sex.
Does anybody really think that anymore? Come on.
I, I genuinely have no idea. I mean, I've never really had any woman I've been with beg me to, have anal sex with them, but
Well,
I know for a fact there are women out there that enjoy it because a few have told me they enjoy it.
it can be great. I do think that, again, this is a stereotype generally speaking, men are probably more interested in it off the get go than women. But I think once you both try it, I mean, as like safety is key, use plenty of lubrication, make sure everybody's prepared and ready and comfortable. No means no, stop means stop. Um, but as long as you're safe and consensual and having a good time and prepared, it can be a really good experience for any type of partnership.
There we go. All right, so on to the last myth. Baby oil and Vaseline are good lubricants.
Please never do that. Please never do that. You're going to hurt yourself, mess up your pH, and give yourself an infection. Don't do that. All very bad. That's why they make water-based and silicone-based lubricants, and they're not that expensive. They're at any old sex store. You can get them online. Or just use lots and lots of foreplay. Spit works, but please don't use oil-based products. They will hurt you. You will get an infection, whether it's a bacterial or fungal infection. You don't want that. Please don't do it.
Okay, so you mentioned that it'll throw up your pH. I actually have no idea what that means. Can you elaborate?
Oh, uh, different parts of the body have different levels, different pH levels, different acidity and alkalinity or basicness. Haha, basic. Um, Like blood is a little bit basic, skin is a little bit acidic, vaginas are a little bit acidic, your rectal cavity is a little bit acidic. If you mess that up too much, you're opening yourself up for organisms that thrive in that pH. The organisms that live in those cavities already are healthy at baseline and in a good environment for themselves, and they're the like healthy good bacteria, good fungal spores, good stuff that has like a harmonious hangout in there in those cavities. But if you mess up the pH too much, you're going to damage the healthy stuff and the bad stuff will overgrow. That's how women get yeast infections and sometimes bacterial vaginosis. So just, you know, they make stuff specifically for orifices at sex stores and online. Use the stuff that's for orifices. Don't use oil-based or foods.
There we go. And don't tell me you guys never learn anything from my channel. All right, so that is it for the myths from Fullajoy, and actually that's all the questions I got. I didn't get a whole lot of questions for this video,
Maybe we'll
but
get better participation next time, maybe.
well, what I think we'll do next time is actually discuss different, things. Yeah, I don't know. We'll figure something out. But I definitely like to keep this going. Try to increase knowledge of sexual and reproductive health. So always a good idea, I think.
Yeah. If you got questions, you can put them in the comments.
Yeah, and chances are we'll answer them in the next video. So, go ahead, put down whatever questions you have, or evidently comments, because we actually got more comments than we got questions. But yeah. So with that, I think we're done. So Laura, thank you for coming on to my channel and helping me out with this. It's I think it's pretty important to increase knowledge, considering
It is.
kids are not really seeming to get it from school. I didn't, And just one last fun fact, I think, before we close. I don't think it was something very well known. I didn't know this until I watched Orange is the New Black the first time. The vagina is not the same thing as the urethra in women.
No. Women have 3 holes.
Yep. Indeed they do. So with that, I am going to go ahead and end the video here. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, please leave the video a like. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And don't forget to join my Twitter to keep up with all my comings and goings. Join my Discord for a chance to talk to yours truly. And take it easy, everyone. I will see you all in the next one. And by the way, I will be leaving Laura Lulu's Twitter in the description box, so you can give her a follow too. She is pretty awesome.
Aw. Thanks, Ben.
Have a good one, everybody.